Well, Melissa, I'm so glad to get to host this conversation today as we talk through kind of what does creating culture in your startup and the company that you're founding, and that doesn't have to wait till you actually have lots of people. So a little spoiler there, but yeah, I'm excited to share your expertise with the community. So will you go ahead and just introduce yourself and kind of what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm Melissa, and I founded my company, Thrive Ops Labs, which is a company of one. And my mission is really to help people, teams, and companies thrive. So my background and experience has spanned mostly in biotech and tech over the last 12, 13 years. So I started my career in HR, talent, and culture in a small company called Genealogics here in Canada. And we started as a company of 25 when I was there and grew to about 60 people. And then we were acquired by a Fortune 500 company down in the States called Illumina. And that was kind of the ultimate opportunity in terms of our acquisition portfolio. Like that was the number one pick, which was really exciting. And so I worked at Illumina for 2 years. And in that time, they grew from being a company of about 4,200 to a company of 8,000. So I saw a lot of growth there as well. From there, I went to another small startup and we grew that team from 25 to 50. And then we merged with another Canadian company of about 40 people. So that's kind of my M&A experience. I was the project lead for both of those and obviously managed all the culture changes that we stumbled through along the way. And then in the last few years, I've predominantly just been working with founders, really on the one-to-one basis and with their small teams. So mostly people under 5 employees or maybe 6 or 7. I really like this size, I think, because there is so much impact to be had when you're just working with a founder. It can have a massive impact on the product, the team, and all the things. So that's kind of where my focus has been in the last while.
Awesome. Well, I love that. Yeah, I love the different types of experience that you're bringing in to this conversation, but also that it's you've been in those shoes, you've been walking with people in those shoes as founders, and so I'm excited to dive in. So let's jump into the framework and kind of look at what is culture, what does creating culture look like in each of these stages. So our first stage is the existential stage. It's the very beginning. It's you're really asking the question, like, what is this business? What is this thing going to be? We're asking, like, who are we helping? What problem are we solving for them? Why does that matter to us? Like, why do I want to go solve it? How am I maybe better than the other options they have to solve it? And really, we're putting all that together to really figure out, like, what is this thing I want to do? And that ends with like a solution statement. So it kind of ends with clarity about, like, this is what I solve for who. And so we're not selling anything at this point, usually, unless we did it kind of accidentally sometimes, which happens. But yeah, when we're in that kind of, there's a lot of dreaming and wondering. But what is, I think a lot of times I would have thought before I met you that there's not much you do from hey, we're doing people and culture type of work here in this space. But then when we talked to you, gave some really cool insight into, like, oh no, it starts here. So yeah, walk us through what should a founder really early on be thinking about from a culture standpoint?
Cool. Well, I think that it's really important to understand that as a founder, you are going to have such an impact on the culture. If you grow a company and 5 years from now, you look at it, you're going to see something quirky and you're going to be able to say, wow, that was me. That's a direct reflection of me, right? I think at this stage, it's just really important to embrace the fact that becoming a founder, starting your own business is really going to be the biggest self-growth opportunity you could potentially get in your career. And if you go into it looking at the reality that you're going to be confronted with things that you don't like about yourself, that you have to improve, you're going to be confronted with your gaps in leadership, in product, in marketing, and all those things, and to just be ready to confront that and level up. So it's really about self-development, I think, at this point. And I speak a lot too about personal operating systems. I teach the bullet journal method. So I think it's important to focus on creating some sort of personal operating system for yourself as you're developing all of this to really understand how you work.
Mhm. Yeah, can you flesh that out for someone if they're like personal operating system? What are we talking
Yeah.
about there? Can you kind of maybe expand on that a little bit for everyone?
Yeah, for sure. For me, I define a personal operating system as essentially the way you organize yourself, the way you communicate with others. So, do you prefer to have phone calls just in the morning or in the afternoon? Do you need a day to yourself to just brainstorm? Do you need a weekly retreat every quarter? Understanding how you operate and the kind of back end to that system is what I consider the operating system. And so this also involves understanding your personal values, your company values, so that you're able to make decisions from there. I think one of the easiest things for people to implement is like some sort of process of reflection. So
Mhm.
if that's either weekly or quarterly, just taking the time to go, okay, what did I do right this week? What worked? What didn't? And what actions do I need to take? Right.
Mhm. No, that's really good. And I like, I mean, like you said, the company ends up being a reflection of the founder, which can be exciting and terrifying at the same time. But I loved, like, as you're talking about that personal operating system, is part of that. Like, that's the solution to that confronting. Hey, this. I'm going to see myself. I'm bringing a lot of myself as a founder to this, and I want to confront that and level up, like you said. But it allows for an intentionality of, in a sense, designing you and your interaction with the business, not just a product, which I think even as you're describing that, it made me realize, like, yeah, that's a problem, a pitfall that we often fall into, is it's like all this intentionality on like, what am I creating, versus like intentionality about like, how am I bringing myself to this entity that's going to deliver that value. And so if I'm intentional with the product, but I just kind of leave myself to chance. I mean, we see the struggles of that a lot.
Bingo.
If we've worked in startups, we've all felt that from one place or another, And so I love that intentionality and that kind of call to stewardship as a founder, and it's a lot easier to reshape those things when it's a team of one, right? Than
Bingo.
a team of 10, and we've been doing this for a few years, like a year or two, and so it really does change things. No, that's awesome. Thanks for walking us through kind of what existential looks like. Because I think, yeah, that was, again, like I said, that was a surprise to me, that I was like, oh, there's a lot more going on in that stage
Yeah.
from a culture standpoint than I realized. So founding is not an easy journey, and as we've talked through all of these stages, we see that there's a lot of highs, there's good things, there's lows, there's monotonous things, but the culture does really frame how that works all together. And even as we were wrapping up with events, I thought it was interesting that, as you're talking about, like, yeah, how a lot of it rests on you as a founder, kind of navigating the unscripted. But a lot of that is formed way back in the first thing we talked about, in that existential stage, when you talked about it being a personal operating system and you kind of have a culture of one. Hey, if you take the time and you are intentional in forming that early, then you have it when you face the unexpected. And if you don't cultivate that and you don't strengthen it, then you don't have that foundation when you hit those unexpected changes. So I like how that actually kind of came full circle
Mm.
there. But as we kind of wrap up, though, Melissa, what would you want to say to a founder, just kind of as we think about the whole journey, as they're creating culture, as they're leading? Yeah, any exhortations, any encouragements or guidance you want to leave with our founding community here?
Oh, well, I think I said it in the beginning too. It's like this is such a personal growth opportunity, right? And I think stepping into the fact that you're a leader early is
Mm,
is a really good move. And this process of developing yourself is so important because people want you to see you level up, and you're going to want it for yourself. Yeah, so doing the things that you need do in order for that to happen. Take the time out when you need the time out. If you're somebody who doesn't need the time out, great. But if you are, show your team who you are and that you take little breaks. Yeah, it's another thing. It's like understanding how much your team and your company wants to know about your personal life. Just because you're a founder doesn't mean they have to know all the nitty-gritty details, right? That's
Right.
not everyone's style. And so, giving yourself the grace and permission that, these are the boundaries that I'm going to have and create. And if you don't have those and that's the way you operate too, go for it. Just really being conscious, I think, of yourself can pay off so much at all stages. And so, yeah, if that's working with a coach early on or bringing on a co-founder to, help your gaps, is that getting an HR or chief of staff or someone that you can lean on to? Definitely having people in your corner you can trust is so helpful. It can be lonely at the top. So try
Yeah.
and as you're growing your crew in your company, yeah, you definitely want to create a little team that you can trust and vice versa.
Well, I appreciate you, encouraging us and exhorting us, guiding us as we walk through all those stages. Just continue to hear the themes of knowing yourself, of that self-awareness, of intentionality and communication. And it just seemed like, okay, if you're, as a founder, if you're listening to this and whichever stage you're in, those are probably some of the levers you're going to pull. But I encourage, if you're just listening to one of the stages, go back and listen to the others, because they do all weave together really naturally. So Melissa, thanks for sharing with the community. I love this interview. It's been a lot of fun. I think it will be a huge blessing to all of our founders. So thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.